nice nose.
85 candles.
Oh, yeah.
Got it.
I met my husband in a biology class. And I didn't care for him at all because the first thing he said to me when the Jiving Jills were sitting together, and he said he just came back from World War II, and we were going to start college together. And he said, Tony, do you think that we have to go to school with this young stuff? He was 4.5 years older than I. So that made me feel like, oh my goodness, I'm chopped liver or something. So I didn't ever like him. I thought he was very conceited. And then when we got to a biology class, I didn't want to put my clam in the same jar with his. And our biology teacher said, you two, you're going to be married someday. And it happened.
When Carol and I worked at Knott's, I'd sometimes ride along in the morning on the Snoopy delivery run. Carol, behind the wheel of an electric cart, is a demon. On this morning, we just entered the park when Carol spotted a guard that she knew. She gave him a big wave and she swerved on over to talk to him. And she said, do you mind if I talk a while? And I said, no, it's fine. And she said, hi, Bill, how are you today? And he said, oh, just great. And she turned to me and said, Pam, this is my good friend, Bill. After the introductions, Carol said, I'm worried about your wife. How is her cold? Is she feeling better? And he says, oh, Penny's feeling much better, thank you. She says, oh, that's good. And your grandson, Kevin, how's he doing in the soccer game? He's such a good cricketer. I bet they won. He goes, they sure did. I'm on pins and needles, Carol said. Did your boy Sept hear from Stanford yet? And she goes, no, not yet. She goes, well, tell him I've got my fingers crossed. He's so smart, I know he'll get in. Tell him I said that. He goes, thanks, he'll appreciate that. And reluctantly, finally, Carol released the cart brake and said, well, I have to deliver Snoopy before the park opens. Have a great day. As we finally drove off, I said to Carol, wow, sounds like you two go way back. How long have you known each other? Carol smiled and said, oh, we met yesterday.
I was in my early 20s when I met Carol, and she was the first person I met when I walked in the door at Knott's. Huge smile on her face, and I don't remember anything about working at Knott's, actually. We had a lot of fun. We had potlucks. Carol danced. We did the costumes for the entertainers, but the entertainment was actually in the costume shop. It was Carol. She would dance. She would sing. And actually, the one thing I remember about you, Carol, is going to Las Vegas.
Yes.
And she brought her tap shoes.
Yes.
And she performed for us in the bathroom.
I didn't know this. I hadn't been in Las Vegas for a long time. I didn't realize they had carpeting on the floors. How can you tap dance on carpet? I had to go in the bathroom to do the tap dance. Oh my gosh.
I love you, Carol.
I took care of Pam because she was so good looking. I wouldn't let her go anywhere in Las Vegas without me.
Never.
I made a costume for my husband. In fact, it was kind of like his best friend Mike Solentich's idea, and they, I had him be a Playboy bunny. But his boobs lit up.
Poor Al.
I fixed it so. I fixed it so that he had a little push button on his hip. And so every time he pushed that button, his boobs would light up. And so we went to different places, and several guys would poke their wives and say, why can't you do that? restroom. And he went in and of course, and then washed his hands. And he pressed the button, there was water on it, and he got the worst scar. He died with that scar. It just burnt him completely. He had a short in it. We're not an electrician.
Poor Albert.
Carol, you've been an inspiration to us, and I know that you've been in a contest where you
Only that's a weekend share.
where you've made bras.
Yes.
I just thought I'd help you out.
I decorated.
Give it for you. Anyways, on the serious side, Carol, I know that you love God.
Oh, yeah.
You have a very big heart. You're a great mom, and a wonderful friend. And you can turn over and say, wow. And you're a star in my life. One more thing. Carol used to tell me I was her favorite. Nancy told me a long time ago, don't let it go to your head because she tells it to everybody.
Jim, you are my favorite.
This is my next door neighbor, poor Daryl.
Poor Albert. I inherited it from poor Albert.
He does everything for me.
She says, you're just not a neighbor, you're a friend. I'm gonna say right now, I've lived there only for 42 years. She's not just a neighbor, she's a big sister, she's a second mom. She's the most wonderfulest neighbor I've ever been next to. Carol is quite the person. Cindy and Kathy, known them, watched them grow up. And my grandkids, okay, they go over to Carol, they're Carol's grandkids. Because I'm raising one right now, and the rest come over, and she just, that's her life. I don't think I could top Jim's story. Mine is just not really hilarious. It is hilarious, and it isn't. Living there, I watch over her. She goes someplace, she always says, Daryl, I'm going to be gone. I'll be back later tonight, or I'm going to be away for a day or two, and naturally I watch her house, put the trash out. We just this has all been going on for years. So one day, all of a sudden, I look, and there's fire department out there, and Gary next door is out there, and Martha came over, and we're ringing the doorbell. Cindy's calling her phone, no answer. I look in the garage, her car's in the garage. I went, oh my goodness, something's happened to her inside the house. Well, the fire department got there, and so I'm not supposed to say this. Instead of breaking in the door, they jimmied the back door. They went in, there's nobody in here. All this commotion is going on, and here comes Carol driving up with a friend.
I just went to get my blood
I just went to get my blood drawn. But yet nobody, including her daughter, knew where she was. Ready to tear the house down.
And everything came.
But I try and keep an eye on her, like I said. She's like a second mom to me. And I've been there 42 years, and I hope to be there for all the time with Carol, because Carol is great. Thank you.
Probably 10 or 12 years ago, I was with my friends Pam and Carla, and they said, we're going to meet Cindy over at her mom's house for a barbecue. Why don't you come along? I said, sure. So we go over, and Carol's in her bathing suit in her hot tub. She gets out and turns around, and the whole backside of the swimsuit was worn so thin you could see right through it. We shared this information with her, and she said, "Oh, that's why everyone at the gym keeps looking at
The story I want to share is one she shared with us. Is one of the reasons why I got one of these questions wrong about what she insisted on Albert doing. And the one was call when he left work, which was number 10. And that's the story on this one that she shared with us. Albert was a pharmacist, and he was working over on West LA, out off of Manchester. And he used to have an exact time on when he was going to be home. Well, he came home late one night, about 8 minutes late. Carol asked him, "Why were you late?" And he said, "Because I had to take Florence home." And she said, she thought he was having an affair, not realizing Florence is a street.
By the time you got home, I had diarrhea. Oh my gosh.
How cute is that?
I have to tell you about the time that we went to women's retreat. We had a whole group of women, and we had this little house that had several bedrooms. And we got there that first night, got settled in, laughed all evening long. Finally, there was this big reclining chair in the living room that Carol sat in, and she just loved it. And so the evening got on, and we decided, well, it's bedtime. It was really, really late, so we all go in and get dressed. Carol goes in, and she comes out in this bubblegum pink, I don't know what it was, nightgown thing that she had made that had a gazillion ruffles that went everywhere. And she plops down in this chair, and she gets it up and moves it back, and then she says, "I think I'm going to sleep in this because it's really comfortable. I think it can go back just a little further." With that, she goes, and this chair goes. All you see with these 2 feet and this pink cloud and the pink. There's more laughing. We left her there. And for her birthday, we had a friend that's crafty.
I still have it.
Do you
Yes,
really?
I still have it.
Made her a doll sitting in this chair. It was to die for. But this is her. We actually had people in the next cabins come over and tell us we were way too loud. Mature women, aren't we?
Some of the other things we used to do together, like, I was so glad to hear that you passed your driver's test. Because remember all the other times whenever I was telling you, Carol, don't get another ticket. They're not going to give you your license. Remember the times whenever we've gone to the police department?
I took her always to pay my fines. I got 2 tickets together. And so everybody that was with me knew they were in the car. Martha was there. She knew why I got this ticket. So every time they'd say, "Don't go on Imperial Highway, your boyfriend's there." It was the same guy that was giving me the tickets every time. That was not fair, but anyway.
I understood what Pam was saying about how you knew people, because whenever we would go stand in line to wait to get up there to pay for your ticket, you'd start talking to everybody in the line. The lady who's, you told her, "I think you're gonna have that baby right here."
Well, she was really happy. Okay.
But the one thing that kind of brought me up to was what Barbara was saying about not being ashamed of how you tell everybody about everything. Remember right after you had your vasectomy, you got your new bra, and we were on our way to church, and I was driving up the street, and you're saying, "Here, Martha, fill my bra!"
I don't do that anymore.
We've shared many, many things in our lives. And one of my favorite things was when I brought my 90-year-old mother out to visit Carol. She always wanted to see Carol. And we always said, well, we'll make a trip. Well, we made more than one trip out to see Carol, and we had such a good time every time we came. But my funny memory of Carol was when we made pasties. And
They don't know what pasties are.
pasties are a Minnesota tradition, or an English tradition, I should say. And my mother was an expert at making them, and Carol learned how to make pasties growing up. It's a meat and potato pie, and they take a lot of work. They're kind of fussy to put together. And Carol and my mother and I were making pasties. And my mother said to Carol, "Now make sure you put them in at 425.
Yeah.
And so Carol went and put the pasties in after we made them for everybody. And my mother said, "Well, you have to turn them down to 375 in 15 minutes. Well, Carol was very busy, and at that time, my mother only slept on a satin pillowcase, and she only had a little pillow like this big. Well, Carol decided she was going to make some cases for her to take home with her. So she went off and started sewing, and all of a sudden we smelled something burning. And what Carol forgot to do was turn it down to 375, and my mother and I were outside visiting with Albert. And we smelled smoke, and then the smoke alarm went off. And my mother said, "Now, Carol, you've done it this time. We worked all morning on these pasties, and we're not going to be able to eat them." And they were burnt on the bottom. Carol said, "That's no problem." She opened the oven, she took a knife, and she scraped all the black off the bottom, and she said, "They're just as good as new." They're just as good as new. So we ate those, and my mother thought that was very special.